Hi, I'm Warren Etheridge, host of The High Bar. I'm so grateful for my friends, the folks who sometimes facilitate connections to people who become guests on The High Bar. Jane Charles, who's a producer of an amazing, powerful film called Sold, was kind enough to introduce me to David Arquette so that we could get him on the show. And so with the High Bar's producer, Tina Knoll, we flew down to L.A. and we set up a day of recording at the Springs in downtown. Thanks to Kimberly Helms, who owns a place, and Max, who does a great job running things. We had a beautiful setup in what seems to be a sanctuary right there in the midst of hip yet still gritty downtown L.A. And so we were going to have David Arquette on the show, and I was really excited, but I always like to do a little background, I like to do a little research, investigate these people, and I spoke to our mutual friend, Matthew Lillard. You may know him as Shaggy, and I'm sure he'd prefer it if I didn't say that, but that's how you know him. Anyway, Matthew Lillard said, don't worry about it, David is a teddy bear. He's gentle as can be, and he was right. We kicked off our conversation talking about the movie Sold that Jane Charles produced, and it is, as I said, a really intense film about child trafficking, essentially. I think I sort of fell in love with David Arquette during this conversation. He is warm, he is honest, he is humble, he's a good actor, and clearly he's a good dad and a good man, and together we raise the bar for one's legacy. Great show. So happy to have met him. Thanks to Matt and Jane.
Are you hungry or thirsty?
I'll have a coffee or something.
Not a rosé?
I like that you're having rosé. That's awesome.
At 3:13 on a Wednesday?
It's a perfect time, and Wednesday makes it even better.
Always a perfect time. So thanks for coming out.
Of course.
I'm curious, Sold is not a big commercial Hollywood film. What draws you to something like that?
Well, I'd worked with Jeffrey Brown on a film, a little indie called Dream with the Fishes. Mm-hmm. And just a great guy, and always comes from a really wonderful place, and a place of growth, and just wanting to tell stories that, have real meaning. And so he was putting this movie together years ago, and it was just a matter of sort of lending my name to it. It's not a really big role or anything, and it's primarily an Indian cast. So I was like, well, whatever I can do to help, I'm here for you. That's pretty much a big part of it, showing up and just helping out. And in the case of this sort of subject matter, just anything you can do helps, because it's just such a huge problem, and it's something strange. Like, until recently, people hadn't been talking about it much.
And it's a huge issue. There are more slaves today than at any other time in the world. There are approximately 45 million. When you read a script like that, do you start to do any research, or do you just hone in on your character?
A little, like, you just more so statistics, research of the people that are helping combat it. Go to the places where it happened, and you meet the survivors. I met some survivors, but it was like, the older ones you'd be able to sort of talk to a little, but they've been through so much, and you don't want to, scar them anymore, so it's kind of hard to ask them questions.
I mean, it's hard for me. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I know you have.
I have a 12-year-old daughter, yeah, almost 13.
And it's a different experience seeing this film now as a dad than if I had seen it 10 years ago, because there have been other films about the subject, but now it really hits me. Do you find it scaring the crap out of you?
Absolutely, especially like knowing the age of these kids. And even working with the kids on the film, it was just like, she's too young. You cast someone who's too young. He's like, no, unfortunately, that's exactly how old she is. I think there's a sort of more PG version that they can show in schools and stuff. I know they do Teach Not Trafficked, which is all designed to go have a version of the film to go to Nepal and show to the kids and the community, so that they can avoid, the people that take them.
But it's a global problem. It's not just Nepal, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The NFL game is coming up, and that's one of the highest trafficked events of the year. They don't publicize that, and I'm sure I'm gonna get some heat from that, but it is, and they should be involved in stopping that, and all the hotel chains and all the airlines. There should be an identification process, and a real. There's warriors on the front line that are really fighting it, that are really out there, that, are after these people. It's just a scary world.
The thing is that it's not just the Super Bowl. I mean, it's everywhere, certainly, but it's not as if this is really a hidden problem. It's a $150 billion industry, so people know about it. It's there. It's just people turn a blind eye.
I guess so. I mean, it's one of those things. I call it like the Oprah effect. Like, until Oprah and Donahue and all that, people just didn't really talk about abuse that much. We just beat our kids. That's sort of what we did. And and then people were like, wow, we can't beat our kids anymore. And everyone's like, wow, we shouldn't then. So I think it's like that on the early stages, and it's also something that is so hidden. It's also a topic that's kind of hard to talk about. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to think about kids getting sold into slavery.
I want to go back to the idea that you haven't shown your daughter sold, but there's this idea, even with the politics that we're alluding to here, of what do you expose your kids to? How much can they know? How much horror should they take in?
I mean, you can obviously limit sort of things they see on the internet, which is good. But, there's some stuff they'll stumble across, so they have to make them aware of that kind of stuff. And I've taken a very sort of honest, almost embarrassing to her approach, right? Just like, it's a silly statement, but there's this viral video of some really sort of sassy 16-year-old girl or something on Dr. Phil, who's just wanting to fight and beat up her mom and beat up the audience, and I'm just and then I watch it with her, and it's funny how ridiculous, if it were a character. So we just talk about it. You know what I mean? This is kind of not what you want to be when you grow up. She's like, I know, Dad. I mean, okay, that makes me feel better. We're talking about this. It's like, oh, Dad. I mean, there's a lot of oh, Dad moments in my life.
I don't think you could escape those, really. But I find that I try to be more and more honest with my daughter, because I feel like somebody has to be in the know at this point. The next generation has to be in the know, because it'd be easy not to.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you walk around Los Angeles and it smells like pot everywhere. So if you're with your kid, you're going to have to talk about it. Right. You know what I mean? And are kids smoking at your school now? Where's the gauge? And as far as I know, she's being honest with me, and I'm being sort of a little overbearing and a little shadowy, but in a good way,
I would speculate that in your lifetime, perhaps you sampled some drugs or alcohol.
I was way worse than her at her age. I mean, I got started early because I had older brothers and sisters. So I'm a little freaked out. And she's like, Dad. You're like, no, those are the weird kids.
It's not cool anymore.
I know. Thank God smoking's not cool anymore. You know what I mean?
So can you blame your siblings for that stuff?
Oh, well, I don't know. Once you get older, you can't blame anyone. You just have to blame yourself now.
So when you're making choices for films, do you think about a legacy? Do you think about what your kids may think someday?
Oh gosh, we do have a rule. Don't Google Daddy. That's a big rule in the house. Yeah, my legacy. Oh gosh, no, I wasn't aware there are legacies out there to get. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. I don't know. I do things that I believe in, scripts that appeal to me. One cool thing about being an actor is that you get to live a lot of these different little lives. So a lot of the time it's a choice based on that, like this world and what this character's going through and exploring it and tapping into stuff that I've experienced that sort of relate to all that. I look for adventure that way. I like to support filmmakers, like up-and-coming filmmakers. It's really hard to get something off the ground in this town, and it's really hard to get someone to read a script if you've written one. And so to be able to support somebody who's got a vision and is really, passionate about what they're doing. I'm doing a film right now called Hollow Body. That's that case, a writer, director. He's just an amazing person, wonderful musician and filmmaker. So it just, it was a good choice. He had a real vision, and I believe in him, and I want to see him thrive, and, if I can, help in any way, It's always wonderful to work with really super talented people who have a resume in films that you're a fan of. That's always a thrill, or actors that you're a fan of that you have an opportunity to work with, but it doesn't happen that often. And a lot of the time it's, this game in Hollywood, which is a little strange, where it's just a lot of judgment, and there are certain things, if you've done several crazy interviews on Howard Stern at points in your life, they might not take you seriously as an actor. Your legacy might be in jeopardy, perhaps. But,
hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically.
I didn't think that was your professional career that was in jeopardy. I thought that was more of a personal thing, but
Yeah, well, a little of both kind of go hand in hand. What happens is that people think that, he's wild or crazy, and isn't professional, which I'm relatively professional. I'm very professional. 10 minutes late professional. I just did a play, Sherlock Holmes, where we traveled and did it. It was the most humbling experience ever. For one, Sherlock Holmes is far smarter than me. I've learned this, even though he doesn't exist. Wasn't an actual person, I learned that too. But at the end of that, I was like, no one, in my opinion, no one should ever play Sherlock Holmes if they're not English. You just have to be, just to embody it.
Did you affect an accent for you did?
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah.
Kevin Costner Robin Hood terrible, or?
No, I mean, come on. I've got a legacy I'm building here. No, I'm just kidding. I love Kevin Costner. He's one of the sweetest, nicest, wonderful people in this town.
You talked about, and I've heard plenty of actors talk about it's an adventure to get into these different characters and live lives that you wouldn't otherwise. Do you ever feel more fulfilled or less fulfilled after embodying somebody else?
Yeah, there's this whole process that goes on when you read a script, when you get on the set, when you start filming, then you see okay, what's real, what's not, what are they gonna cut, because that's way too expensive to do in an independent film. So there's all of that kind of stuff that goes on. That's a nice little adventure in its own sort. But yeah, a lot of the time you just never know how something's gonna turn out, or how it's gonna be received, if people even get to see it.
I know the rule in the house is that the kids can't Google Daddy. If you could control Google, what would you want the number one hit to be?
For David Arquette. Oh, for David Arquette? Yes. Oh, man. This interview. Yeah, totally.
This is the peak of your career right here.
This is it. We're here.
You are welcome.
Thanks, you guys.
For giving back.
I don't know. I mean, if it was a film, Dream with the Fishes was one of my favorite films that I'd ever done. A movie called John's, which is also about, a street hustler, so it's in the same horrible world. something like that.
Not the Howard Stern interviews, because I actually sort of like when you're very candid. Like, I understand why some things may be embarrassing a little bit, but you're very open, you're very candid. That's something to be commended, right?
It is. Until you're at an event with someone you've known for a long time, an actress who's in the A-list, and then when you're just talking, like, how are you doing? Good to see you. How are your kids? Then a photographer says, hey, can I have a picture? And she's like, no, not right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm like the embarrassing guy to take a picture with?
Wow.
I thank you so much for that feeling. And I'll talk to you later.
What's interesting to me, though, is part of that candor, part of that openness that may have caused you trouble is also a good indication for somebody who's capable of being intimate with others. You're in a good relationship now. It's got to have served you well in some way, right?
Yeah, and my son now is really just adorable. Coco and him get along really well. His name's Charlie, and we have a new baby coming along, a baby boy. So it's going to be amazing to see those two together, all those three together. My father was an improviser, so he taught us a lot about thinking on our toes and being in the moment, and that served me a lot as far as just interacting with people in my life, like finding joy and finding the light side of stuff and having fun. And then on set, like finding a character and finding what that character would say. In this movie I did yesterday, A Hollow Body, my character's really kind of a sleazebag. So I came up with a joke that was a horrible joke. I mean, but I said it to this character in the vein of how my character would say it. I essentially was joking about calling her a slut. I said, blondes don't have more fun, sluts do. Because she had changed her hair color and been possessed by another person. And then she was like, oh, that's real original, calling a woman a slut. I was like, no, I'm a slut too. But yeah, it was a digging a hole kind of moment. I don't know. I guess I'm old-fashioned.
Would she have her picture taken with you now?
No, absolutely not.
Just one after another, knocking them out.
Yeah, exactly. Digging a hole. I'm actually sweating right now. That happens. That happened on the set. Sometimes you try something, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't work is when it really goes bad quickly.
Do you compare notes with your siblings at all?
Yeah, we have a weekly where we all sit down and review each other's careers and critique each other. It's anonymous, so we put it the critiques in. But I figure out most of their sort of writing styles, so I know who's saying what.
Penmanship.
Yeah, penmanship, exactly.
It's always a giveaway. But it doesn't feel competitive or comparative to you?
No, not in like the business. I mean, it's interesting. We're all at different points in our career. We're all, have gone through our different things, and you want stuff for your siblings. You know what I mean? We were all thrilled when Patricia won the Oscar, and but you also want to my sister Rosanna's been doing it forever, and my brother Richmond, not as known as the rest of us, which is also by choice because he doesn't like the limelight at all. But you really just want everyone to sort of be included. That's the crazy thing about Hollywood is sometimes you feel like, when you're in the hit movie and everything's happening, you're invited to all these parties, and then you're not. And then you meet this group of people who are these artists who are well, you don't want to be at those parties anyway. And then you're like, oh, awesome. So now I'm in this crowd, and then you're not. And then you wait to be either invited back to the party or just do something honest and true that sort of breaks through, or something like Sold where it doesn't matter anyway. There's bigger things than any of that stuff. Any legacy matters.
Are there other parties? Once you leave the big party, is there another party? Sort of a sad, legacy-less party?
Yeah, it's your funeral. And and they hopefully say good things about you. Although I've been to some funerals where it's great when the guy's a real jerk and people are there's the whole fun kind of You know, they say somebody says a joke that just rings true about sort of how this person was specifically, and then everyone can laugh at how ridiculous creatures we are.
Wow, you're going to better funerals than I am, because I always find that people become saints immediately, which I go like, really?
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's not the relative I knew.
Right.
He's a rat bastard.
Exactly. That's what you gotta
Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins.
Yeah. Bizarre movie.
It is. I've only seen a trailer for it, but it looks mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. It's a bunch of these kids from the 90s. They have a group called Coat Wolf, and they all like write, produce, and direct. We shot the movie like 3.5, almost 4 years ago.
And it's now coming around through self-distribution.
Oh my gosh. They really are ambitious. Like, they all are filmmakers. They all know how to run cameras. They're all acting in the movie. So they're all covered in dirt and blood and all this, you know, greasy hair and crazy costumes. They're shooting the thing, and they have like 8 angles. Everyone's got a camera. They're shooting this scene, like the main camera's there. He's like, oh, I got a jam. Or whatever, a glitch. And the guy's like, I got it. The other guy moves right in, and you don't stop rolling. You don't reset. You're just like, yeah, it's like this fluid, like insane process. And they're all actors in the movie. They're all the leads, and they're all like these. They've got these complicated storylines that all weave into each other. It's all based on a side-scrolling video game, so it's all like side-scrolling, like Street Fighter kind of video game, and so it's like the future, and it's when like gangs were cool, you know. When gangs were cool, like the Warriors were like they fought with chains and 2x4s, yeah, and baseball bats,
and weird amounts of makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Every crew had like a look. So it's all that kind of stuff.
So now, what about going back to your? We're going to talk about legacy. I feel like your dad has a legacy, don't you?
I do. I mean, I don't know. It's just not known as much as, you know, sometimes you'd hope. But you know, the Screen Actors Guild is really great about recognizing people when they pass, which is good, and that's our community, honestly. Anyway.
What always throws me is that I remember when Shawshank Redemption came out, and people responded to James Whitmore's performance in there. But he had always been great. He just hadn't acted for 15, 20 years. Right. And that pains me. Not only do people seem to leave the big party, but people forget, oh, that guy's really talented. How do we change that part?
I don't know. I think a part of it's like a process of just not giving up and just keep fighting, and it happens a lot in music. I guess it happens in acting too, but you know, Bob Dylan will have this like channel to some other side and this incredible connection, and not to knock Bob Dylan because he's still out there still making music, but as far as the writing and whatever, I don't know, but it just seems like there's sometimes a disconnect, and then like they're not in touch with it. So I think part of it's staying in touch. And a lot of that's like not getting fake and trying not to get caught up in things, and you know, staying real.
It sounds like you're doing a good job staying real. you haven't.
Thank you.
You have not allowed yourself to get arrogant.
I haven't had the luxury.
If you would, you could.
Oh, yeah. Listen, there was a whole thing when I was going through it about don't sell out.
Right.
I'm like, God, if I could only sell out. Dang it. Not really, but sort of.
It does say something about you if you can sell out. Yeah. Absolutely. That's right.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows at this point if you're slumming or not.
Or if you'll be president someday. I mean, at this point, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Well, that actually gives me some hope, because in 4 or 8 years, anything could happen.
Come on, Clooney.
Is that really who you're going to bank on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's teed it up with the meal and the whole thing, the international lawyer for the rights, and he's a brilliant, wonderful man. I mean, let's do it.
We'll turn this into
I want to see
Clooney
that.
2020. Okay.
I'm telling you, I want to see that debate. I just want it. It's like,
I thought I wanted to see the last debates, but
I did at the time. Enjoyed every moment of it, thinking it was going in a different direction.
that's right. It seemed that way. It seemed
Wow.
slam dunky.
Still does. Still does. Seems very slam dunky.
Damn it. You've used the word warrior a few times, and you get to and you get to play a warrior of sorts in Sold. If you could fight for one thing right now, and for the rest of your life, what would that be?
I mean, it's gonna sound cheesy and very hippie-ish, but it is love. You know what I mean? It's kindness. It's the goodness in people. It's creativity. It's art. I mean, not to get too philosophical, but on one of my many spirit trips,
Don't Google Daddy and spirit trips.
I just was like, what is it all about? And and I think it's about creativity. I mean, that really is the only way to get out of, if you really have a heartbreak, do something creative. Write a whole heartbreaking poem, or paint a really sad painting, or just, Oh, you go to Amsterdam, if you visit the Van Gogh Museum, you walk in, it's the only museum I've ever gone to where I walk in, I'm like, wow, I love Van Gogh, I love his art. And you walk in, it's like, oh, the pain he was in. Everyone looks at these paintings like, oh, I think there was someone crying in the corner, like, so you could do that, and it's a good way to get that pain out. And, but also, if there, I don't know about, any religious thing, I just, on the fence. I believe in it all, especially with losing people and, spontaneous things that happen, and that it all seems very connected in a weird way. But, that it's creativity, and, the great creator, which is not a man only, it's got to be something more, guys. Has to include a woman. I'm just saying. I've always said that. People have always been like, that's one of the reasons why this famous celebrity woman might not have talked to me, because, I went off on God being a woman. Also, yeah. But whatever.
But that's okay.
Well, not really. I'm still holding on to. My thing's this. If we could just say, I embarrassed my sister at a party when I did this, but because I wasn't supposed to talk, but it was a women's event, and I was like, oh, God's a woman, and that whole trip that I'm on. But I said, I think it would change a lot if we just changed that one prayer, Our Father, who art in heaven, to our Father and Mother, who art in heaven. I mean, a simple change, very significant, very significant. So I change it in my head. But then God, not to get too philosophical, but in Warrior Preach, no. The more we can be like a creator, create things. And then if there is an AI, and it does become smart, and hopefully it doesn't destroy everything, and is really good AI, that then it becomes a great creator of art and magic.
Wow. Takeaways: paint like a genius. God may be a woman as well as a man.
And don't Google Daddy.
And don't Google Daddy. And don't sleep with kids. Those are the.
Wow, absolutely. Which one of those things is extremely obvious?
That's right. Well, apparently not to a lot of people.
I know. Oh.
So, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You're very kind.
You're so great.
Hey,
So
that's
fun.
wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Can I have
Matthew Lillard asked me to say hello. Many, many, many thanks to Kimberly Helms and Max over at the Springs in downtown LA, as well as to Jane Charles. Thanks so much for your help with this episode. New episodes of The High Bar come out every Thursday. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, visit our website, thehighbar.tv. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, where you can find us at the High Bar, and on Instagram, we're at thehighbar.tv. If you like what we're doing, we'd love it if you'd take some time to review us on iTunes. It really would go a long way. The show is produced by Tina Knoll and Large Media. Our editor is Warren Langford. Our production assistant is Sarah Leibovitz. Our theme music was composed by Ralph Kent. And I am your host, Warren Etheridge. Think responsibly.